we've reviewed this, we don't think it needs to be changed, but if you want to change it, this is what we suggest, or we may suggest that you do change it. You know, it's just because you're initiating it doesn't mean it's going through. So it's more of a, is that something you want us to spend time on, or do you think it's fine? So
All right.
that's sometimes a confusion in my past experience. So any other questions? Okay. The next chapter talks about the Board of Zoning Appeals. If you have a code, zoning ordinance, you have to have a Board of Zoning Appeals. State statute outlines that. State statute also outlines that if you have subdivision regulations, you have to have a planning commission. So that's how we get the two boards that we staff here. This chapter outlines the authority, the powers and the duties and the procedures for the Board of Zoning Appeals. They hear variances. They are not a recommending body as the Planning Commission is on the majority of applications. They are a final acting body. Appeals to their decisions go to the district court. Appeals to your decision go to the City Council. So they are a little bit different than the Planning Commission. Next chapter talks about penalties for violating the code, and that is the end of the zoning ordinance. If you don't have any questions, I'll go on to the design standards. As I talked about in the very beginning of the zoning ordinance, these design standards were adopted into the zoning ordinance by reference. We do review projects based on the design standards. That's the next section after the zoning ordinance in your book. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. There's lots of things in there as far as shoulds and shalls and how things should look. The introduction section of the design standards talk about the purpose and intent of the standards, the goals, enforcement of the standards, the rules, interpretation, and then the definition section. The first chapter is the architectural requirements. Really, these are the overarching kind of goals to achieve the architectural type of design. It talks about the scale of the buildings, the proportion of the buildings, the composition, the rhythm you're creating, transparency as far as windows, as far as one you'll see in November has a outdoor area for their employees, and it's got cover, and then the side wall has some transparency with louvers on it. Expression, materials, we always request what type of materials they're using. It talks about what types are acceptable, what types are not acceptable in there. It talks about color. We do ask for color. Generally, it's nothing noxious, not neon green and neon orange. And then the harmony. And a lot of it looks at site design, what's going on around the site. Is the proposed building in harmony? Does it fit? It's kind of a feeling type of standards. They're not cut and dry like you have to have the property or the building set back 15 feet. There's a lot more wiggle room in these type of standards. There's also the chapter in here about landscape design standards, the physical framework, which includes the public areas and then the private areas, how you should lay out the landscaping in your parking lots, how you should lay out the landscaping along the rights-of-way, and then specifically along the Main Street corridor, of which we have a Main Street corridor plan. This is a plan that was done and approved a few years ago. It really hasn't been implemented. You notice that in the design standards, the design standards were done after the Main Street corridor, so a lot of the standards and ideas in there were incorporated into the design standards. As far as the implementation of a lot of the other portions of the Main Street corridor plan, they haven't been done. In there it talks about the vision and goals of the corridor, design guidelines, zoning regulations. The zoning regulations have not been implemented. The corridor traffic assessment, the actual vision plan, which the vision plan is almost an overall picture of how they would like the corridor to see. If you look at some of the drawings and sketches and pictures in that vision plan, you'll notice that some of those pictures were borrowed in the design standards. So some of that ended up implemented through the design standards, and then the action plan. This is probably going to be hard to see for you. You have a copy of this in your book, though. This is a district map. On the far west, there's the downtown district. Right next door to the east is the Midtown district. The Strip district is further east, and then the Highway district around the highway. It talks about streetscape in this plan, what that should look like, and then gives some diagrams of how you could lay out the street differently and such. Being that Main Street is a highway, there are some implications dealing with that with KDOT and such, so that does make it a little more difficult. But I think we're going to see some of the ideas from this rolled into the comprehensive plan that we're working on. So that was all I have.
So is it safe to assume if a comprehensive plan is presented and approved that the Main Street corridor plan, downtown plan, those will probably be rolled into the new plan?
Yeah, I mean, they have this. They know it exists. I think some of those overall concepts will be included in there. We've talked about doing a downtown plan for those couple blocks around there to be more specific. There's an opportunity to do some historic districts downtown and some more of those details. We're working on the downtown portion more than some of the other ones, because they're getting caught in some of the other ones, especially with the design standards. So. Are you buzzing?
I'm taking this all in.
Overwhelmed?
No, this has been great. I really appreciate the overview. In speaking to the comprehensive plan, will that be a part of an overview once the group gets going? And I know that there's been at least one meeting with a group of citizens.
We do have two planning commissioners on that committee. It's a CPAC, with Comprehensive
Plan Advisory Committee, and Commissioner Barber and Commissioner Weatherford are on it. And we had the kickoff meeting of CPAC. We are now scheduling meetings with business stakeholders, a business meeting, that's what we're calling it, and a community workshop. and then elected officials